Well, it's been a while, but I'm back. The semester wrapped up and things got crazy busy, so I wasn't able to do any videos for a while. But it's good to be back. It's good to say that the spring 2020 semester is over. It's kind of bittersweet because I always miss my students when we're done. But looking forward to a little bit of a break for the summer. But we still have more story to tell. We've been exploring Toya's world. She's in her new foster home. She's getting adjusted to her new environment. Um, and so, the thing I want to talk about, I brought a new friend with me for this discussion. Right here, this teddy bear is special. I've kept him for a long time because it was given to me by a man named Will. Back in the day, I worked at a law firm, and sometimes I would work late nights. And there was this homeless man who would be standing on the corner, trying to get money, you know. And I would always speak to him and say good night on my way out the door. He was very friendly, and I was just always very nice to him. So he must have really appreciated that because one day I came outside and he was selling. I don't know where he got bears from, but he had a whole bunch of teddy bears and he was selling them to people. And so when I walked by, he gave this to me, and I tried to give him money for it, and he just refused to take my money, which says that he really appreciated the fact that I took the time to speak to him and have conversations with him and joke with him. I treated him like a person. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because there was something about William and me that connected. We had some common ground, and I'll talk about that at the end of uh, this chapter. But I want us to think about, as we're reading Toya's story, common ground. As we're in isolation, one thing that we have in common is that we're all isolated at this point. And that goes for the whole world practically. All around the world, people are in the same situation that you are in. So whenever you feel like you're the only one going through all this and you're all alone, know that you're not alone, that you have something in common with probably 90% of the rest of the world. So I'm going to have him sit with me right here so he can hear the story. Thank you, William. And I'm going to get us back into our discussion. So we're going to jump right into chapter 4. The crash of a shattering dish woke me up. It was followed by a damn it, then a Chelsea, and then finally the thud 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 of Chelsea's heavy feet stomping down the stairs. I couldn't hear what Miss Angie and Chelsea were saying. Whatever it was, they were all worked up. I knew it. These freakishly nice people were starting to show their true colors. For 2 weeks, since I started living there, it had been a relatively drama-free household. I never trusted it though. Sure, I played along. As foster homes went, it was okay. Clean, quiet, nice flat screen TV and cable. And I really didn't want to move again. So I did everything I could to be the model foster kid. I did my chores. I sat up with them at night and watched TV. No back talk, no attitude, but I was definitely holding back. I made polite conversation, but never revealed anything too personal about myself. I resisted hard that part of me that wanted to accept these people and feel close to them. It was easier that way. So when the stuff finally did hit the fan and they kicked me out, it wouldn't hurt so bad. I had been hurt enough. I just wanted to make the best of things until I was old enough to get my own place. That was my plan, and so far it had been working. I even talked Miss Angie into training me to work as a shampoo girl in the salon a couple days a week so I could make some extra money on top of my allowance. Everything had been going so nicely until now. Bring on the drama. This morning's commotion was a signal to me that the honeymoon was over. I pulled the covers over my head and pretended to be asleep, hoping Miss Angie would leave me alone. No such luck. Toya! The sound of that voice made my stomach twist in a knot. I flipped back over the covers, took a deep breath, and dragged myself downstairs, dreading what I'd find when I got there. What'd I do that I wasn't supposed to do? Or not do that I was supposed to do? Who knows? Foster moms just like to go off sometimes. PMS, I guess. What happened to all the drama? I walked in the kitchen expecting to find a whole lot of yelling and screaming, pots and pans flying. No. What I found was Chelsea sitting at the table, munching on a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, watching the Disney Channel on a tiny flat screen TV mounted on the wall. Miss Angie was stooped down on the floor picking up fractured pieces of a mug that lay in a puddle of green tea. Hey, good morning, Miss Angie said, as she reeled off a long string of paper towels and started mopping up the spill. Listen, I got a little emergency to deal with, and Chelsea's got to go to dance class, so will you be okay here by yourself? Yeah, I answered, still processing what Miss Angie just said. I hadn't realized it until then, but I had not been alone in this house since I got there. I figured you would, Miss Angie said. She scooped up the ball of tea-soaked paper towels and tossed it in the trash. I just didn't want you to wake up this morning and find everyone gone and think we ran away from home or something. No, I'll be okay. I felt a strange sense of relief. It turned out all the commotion I'd heard was because Miss Angie had gotten a phone call from one of her clients who was having a hair emergency. Now Miss Angie had to rush over and fix the woman's hair, which meant she couldn't drive Chelsea to dance class. Miss Angie was so busy packing her supplies while fixing herself a bagel, at the same time talking on the phone trying to find someone to take Chelsea to dance class, that she dropped her mug of tea. That was the crash I heard. So then Miss Angie had to get Chelsea up early to drop her off at her friend Alexis's house so her mom could take them both to dance class while she went on to deal with their hair emergency. The hair emergency turned out to be due to the fact that her client, Cheryl, who was supposed to get married this afternoon, went to her bachelorette party last night, where the groom's ex-girlfriend just happened to show up. A big cat fight broke out. Apparently, fake hair and fake nails were flying all over the place. I told Cheryl not to go out last night, Miss Angie said, stuffing her travel bag with combs and hairpins. Now I gotta try and glue tracks in a hole left side of her head. I'm a magician, not a miracle worker. Oh, shoot. She snapped her fingers, just remembering something. She grabbed her purse and started rummaging through it. Whatever Miss Angie was looking for, she couldn't find it. And the longer it took, the more frazzled she got. The harder she slammed things on the counter that she took out of her bag. When she slammed her sunglasses so hard they bounced off the counter and onto the floor, Chelsea looked worried. What are you looking for, Mommy? My cell phone. Miss Angie stopped long enough to tuck a wild strand of hair behind her ear. I was supposed to braid Terry's hair today. I guess I gotta call and cancel. I can do it, I heard myself say. Where did that come from? My mouth. I can braid hair. The way Miss Angie was squinting at me, I thought she was about to bounce me off the counter like she did those sunglasses. Then her face lightened. Could you? Oh, thanks, Toya. That would be a big help. She hugged me. I didn't hug back. But Miss Angie had already turned her attention to Chelsea, clapping her hands. Come on, Chelsea. Let's go. Let's go. As Chelsea gulped down the last few swallows of cereal and milk, Miss Angie gave me some basic instructions on what to do with Terry. Then, in a whirlwind, Chelsea and her dance bag and Miss Angie and her travel bag were out the door. The house was quiet now. I finally had the place to myself. It was sort of nice. I felt strangely free. Free to sing out loud and dance through the halls. Free to walk around from the bathroom to my bedroom in my bra and panties, if I wanted to. Free to sneak into Chelsea's room and play with her gigantic pink dollhouse. Free to run into Miss Angie's room and try on some of those designer clothes. but there really wasn't time for any of that. Terry would be over in a half an hour. The doorbell rang an hour later. Miss Angie had said that Terry was a family friend. He must have been that, but he was also late. At first, I thought Terry was a woman, but he was actually a boy. He came over every few weeks to get his hair braided. Miss Angie had known him for years, so he didn't have to pay. And apparently he didn't have to be on time either. I took my time brushing my hair, then scooped up the plastic caddy that held a comb, brush, hair oil, and I headed downstairs. The doorbell rang again. "I'm coming!" I yelled from the top of the stairs. Not only was this dude late, but he was impatient. I raced down the stairs, through the living room, opened the door, and almost fainted. Terry, the family friend, the late one, the impatient one, was the same cutie pie I had seen playing the drums at church. My eyes nearly fell out of my head. I gasped, "You, I mean, you're Terry?" "Yeah." His voice was uncertain at first, as if trying to figure out who this girl was who was staring at him like a lioness staring at a fresh young gazelle. Suddenly his eyes lit up. "Hey, aren't you the girl who ran over Mother Pearl in the church that day?" Flashes of poor Pearl clutching her chest before toppling over flooded my mind. I thought fast. "Oh, that, I was sick. I had to get out of there before I threw up all over the carpet." Terry nodded, then stuck his hands in his pocket of his cargo shorts, feeling uncomfortable again because I was back to staring. "You're Latoya, right? Miss Angie told me about you." "How much did she tell you?" I thought to myself as Terry continued. "It's nice to meet you. I'm Terrence." He extended his hand. A gentleman. I took his big, strong hand and examined it. A large bush of hair was tucked up under his Phillies baseball cap. The cap and the hair shaded Terry's face, but I could still see the face was beautiful. He had to be over 6 feet tall and smelled fresh and clean, like Irish Spring soap. "So, is Miss Angie here?" Terry asked, growing more and more uneasy under the heat of my longing gaze. I snapped out of my trance. "Oh, no. She had an emergency with one of her clients, so I told her I'd do you. I told her I'd braid your hair for you." Why was my mouth working against me? The harder I tried to appear cool, the more I came off like a goofy little girl who had never talked to a boy before. Although I felt like a babbling fool, Terry barely seemed to notice. He shrugged his shoulders. "Okay." "Okay?" I was amazed at how laid back he was. If a total stranger had offered to pop up out of the blue and braid my hair, I would want to see a resume and some references or something. Not Terry. He just took off his baseball cap and made himself at home. "Okay, then." I tried to echo his breezy tone. "Well, it's nice outside, so I figured we could sit out here on the porch. Unless you want to do it in front of the TV. That was not what I meant to say. I can braid your hair while you watch TV. "No, outside's cool." "Cool." I took a seat on the top step while Terry plopped down 2 steps below me, resting his back between my knees. I was wearing white denim shorts that were just short enough that I could feel Terry's skin brush against my thighs as he slid into position. I suddenly felt very warm, much warmer than this 80-degree day had called for. Terry's back was broad and strong. I could tell he lifted weights. I reached for the comb and noticed my hands were trembling. "Stop that." Terry had already washed his hair before he got there, and it smelled like Pantene. It was soft like mounds of cotton passing between my fingers as I crafted neat rows of braids. I found myself rambling on and on about nothing, trying to find things I might have in common with them. It was the most talking I'd done since I moved to Miss Angie's house. I discovered that Terry was an only child. He was on the honor roll and he wanted to be a lawyer someday. He played the drums and he also played football, which was the reason he was here today. He always got his hair braided for football camp, then shaved it all off when school started. Out of everything he said so far, I could find nothing we had in common, except for the fact that we would be going to the same school and were in the same grade. There were long gaps in our conversation where we said nothing to each other. The silence interrupted only by the occasional car driving by with its music so loud that the windows on the house shook. Terry didn't seem at all bothered by the quiet, but it was driving me crazy. I only had 4 braids left, and he would have been out of there. I had to think of something to grab his attention, and fast. Think, Toya, think. I didn't have to think. It was Terry who asked a question that really got the ball rolling. So, do you miss your family? Of course, I said, with a "that's a stupid question" tone. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. It just slipped out like that. But it was a stupid question. It's a valid question, Terry replied. Not everyone in foster care wants to go home to their family. The boy may have been cute, but he was as dumb as they came. I could feel my blood starting to simmer. I hated when people talked about stuff they had no possible way of understanding, especially things that involved my family. Why? You think just because you take a kid out the hood and put her in a big house with some nice clothes, she's supposed to forget all about her family? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? My voice was hot with bitterness. I was being defensive and I knew it. It was just a reflex. He nudged me and I shoved back hard. Terry continued. I'm just saying, sometimes the situation is so bad at home, some kids never want to go back. How would you know? You have kids? Hell no. You could have fooled me. I mean, you're sitting here like you're the expert on raising kids. Or did you learn that in one of your honors classes? Unless you're the type to go around running your mouth about stuff about which you know nothing about. He grabbed my hand suddenly. Girl, chill. You're about to dig a hole in my head with that comb. I could feel the tension in my hands, and I was taking it all out on poor Terry's scalp. One look at his smile, though, and it all melted away. Sorry. Mental note. Toya is very sensitive when it comes to talking about her family. I'm not sensitive. Yeah, you're not sensitive. I mentioned the word family and you stabbed me in the head with a comb. Why not? That's what we hood rats do, right? You piss us off and we stab you in the head. Hey, I never called you a hood rat, so don't go putting words in my mouth. Why are we fighting anyway? I mean, all I did was ask you a simple question. If you didn't want to answer, you could just say that. You didn't have to assault me. First of all, I didn't assault you. And second, I don't like people being all up in my business. I was just trying to have a conversation. No, a conversation is, how's the weather? What do you want to be when you grow up? You were just being ignorant. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got all over again. And I added, as a matter of fact, I don't want to braid your hair anymore. Bye. I shoved Terry in the back, and he popped up to his feet. Seriously? You gonna leave me standing here with my head looking like this? He pointed to the patch of fro sticking out from among the neat cornrows. I ignored him and kept packing up my supplies. Wait till I tell Miss Angie. She don't like it when people mess with her customers. Customers? No, he didn't just say that. I slapped my hand on my hip and my neck began to roll. Customers pay. This was a handout. Terry proved he could roll his neck too. Handout, whatever. My dad does enough favors for Miss Angie to keep my hair tight for the rest of my life. Your dad? I stopped and cocked my head. I covered my mouth and gasped, Is Uncle Kevin your dad? I laughed so hard I had to sit back down. What's so funny? I didn't answer. I couldn't answer. I was laughing so hard. I didn't know why it was so funny. Probably because I had spent so much time fantasizing about the man who had possibly stolen Miss Angie's heart, and the rest of the time fantasizing about the cutie pie I had seen on the drums. Now I had just learned the two men in my fantasies were father and son. Uh-oh, Terry said. I see Chelsea's been talking him up again. According to her, your dad and her mom are practically engaged. Terry sat down beside me, shaking his head. I keep telling that girl I don't want no little sister. Why not? Then you can play with a dollhouse whenever you want. He waved me off. Man, I got my own dollhouse at home. I laughed some more, so Terry kept going. It's actually more like a doll condo. It's got leather couches, flat screen TV, and a jacuzzi. You know, for the honeys. The more Terry talked, the more he cracked me up. I think he liked that about me. I had a big, joyous laugh, like he was the funniest boy in the world. Terry seemed to make up his mind that he liked laughing Toya much more than angry one, and would try to stay on my good side from now on. A task that would later prove to be a lot harder than it would seem on this breezy summer afternoon. Listen, about what I said earlier, Terry's tone had turned serious. I wasn't trying to be mean. I really was just curious. I had a friend who was in foster care, Tara. She was in foster care for like 8 years because her mom was on drugs. Then one day they told her mom had cleaned up her act and she had to go back and live with her. She begged the judge, the social worker, even her foster mom not to make her go back. They wouldn't listen. She got used to it, right? I asked, a hopeful note in my voice. I mean, eventually she and her mom made it work. A month after she went back, her mom was back on drugs again. That made me sad. Like it was my best friend he was talking about and not some girl I'd never met. I sighed. That's messed up. Did she go back to her old foster home? Nah. She had already had new kids by then. Tara ended up in a group home. Just hearing the words group home made me nauseous. Does she like it there? Almost afraid to hear the answer. Cherry shrugged. She stopped calling me when they put her in there, so I wouldn't know. Dozens of scenarios raced through my mind as to why Terry would have stopped calling. Why Tara would have stopped calling. Maybe they weren't allowed to make phone calls. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe she was mad at the world. Maybe she was mad at Terry for not finding her and coming to her rescue. The scenario ceased when I saw the pain in Terry's eyes. A lot like the pain I saw in them that day at church. Can I ask you a question? I asked after a moment. Do I have a choice? I'm serious. Okay. What do you want to know? That day in church, when y'all were at the altar, why was everybody crying? Terry released a sigh that seemed to have been trapped deep within his soul. Then he said, I guess we were all thinking about Kareem. He died a few months ago. He got shot? What? No. Terry sounded repulsed, as if such a thing were completely out of the question in his world. In my world, teenage boys named Kareem getting shot to death was more common than even I'd like to admit. Terry said, he had cancer. Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. I didn't mean to. No, it's okay. You know, you sort of remind me of him. I didn't know if that was an insult or a compliment. I mean, he only lived here for a couple of years. His dad sent him out here to live with his grandmom to keep him off the streets. But he was Philly to the bone, like you. He was real cool, but he could be hardcore when he wanted to be. You think I'm hardcore? You stabbed me in the head with a comb. I said I was sorry. Anyway, back to my question. Is that why y'all all got saved? You think when you go to heaven you'll see Kareem again? I guess so. But I went down there because Pastor Ewan was talking about casting our cares on God. I felt like I had been carrying this hurt around so long. If God wanted to carry it, he could have it. Terry looked away like he was watching the cars drive by, but I sensed he was afraid he might look at me and cry. The quiet settled in on us again. Without saying another word, I unpacked my comb and Terry scooted back into position. Moments later, I had finished the last few braids. Terry admired my work in a handheld mirror. He was pleased. I was pleased. I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep. My mind replayed every moment of my time with Terry. I was interested in him, but at the same time, I felt sorry for him. One friend got shipped off to a group home, another friend got cancer. Both were now gone from his life. He suffered a lot of loss in his life, and so had I. I had finally found something we had in common: pain. Why couldn't it be bowling or writing poetry? Anything but pain. Maybe we could help each other through it. Maybe we could lean on each other when we were hurting. I suddenly had the urge to talk to him, to hear one more of his dumb jokes. I remember that I still had his number. Miss Angie had written it down this morning before she went to deal with the hair emergency. I picked up my shorts from the floor and dug out his home number out of my pocket. As soon as I picked up the phone, my stomach started doing backflips. I dialed the number anyway. After 3 rings, a female voice answered. Hello? Hi, is Terry there? Who is this? Uh-oh. I recognized that voice. I didn't know the woman, but I was very familiar with that voice. An angry mother with a "stay the hell away from my precious baby boy" quality in her voice. This is Toya? Toya. Do you know what time it is, Toya? The voice snapped, clearly irritated. In fact, I had no idea what time it was until I looked over at my clock and saw, 11:26. A decent girl knows better than to be called a boy's house at 11 o'clock at night. As a matter of fact, a decent girl doesn't go around chasing after boys. They let the boys chase them. You know what that tells me about you, Toya? I wasn't sure if I was supposed to answer her or not. But when the voice said louder in a louder and angrier tone, "Well, do you?" I quickly replied, "No, no, ma'am, no." It tells me that you are not a decent girl, the voice said sharply, slicing through me like a steely blade. Don't call my house no more. Dial tone. Okay, that's it. So we get to figure out who was the cutie pie playing the drums. It is Terry, who has a connection already to Miss Angie and therefore a connection to Toya. And even though in the beginning she was struggling to find some kind of way to connect to him, something they had in common, and was striking out, they actually did have something in common, and that was pain. They both had gone through loss and separation from people that they cared about. And that common bond is something that we'll draw upon for the rest of the book. But I thought it was important for us to talk about that in particular today. So I talked about my friend, William, who gave me this. Oh, he's so soft too. Stuffed elephant. Something about me connected with him. And even though he was homeless and he was selling these stuffed animals, he refused to take my money. He really wanted to show his appreciation to me by giving me this stuffed elephant. And I started to think about that. There's something about me and this person, even though we are from two different worlds, I've never been homeless. I think he was from the South. I want to say he was from Mississippi. I think that came up in one of our conversations. I'd never been homeless. Um, but we had something in common. Both of us, I felt, were alone, like lonely. And that's the reason why I spoke to him, because I know what that feels like. I've never been homeless, but I know what it feels like to be alone. And here this man was all alone on the streets, people walking by him, ignoring him, treating like he didn't exist. And I just couldn't take that because I know what that feels like. So I always made a point of speaking to him and asking about his day and what's going on in his world, because I do understand that. So what I would say for you guys is we are still in isolation, and maybe some of you are starting to come out of isolation, to know that there's still a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety that people are feeling right now, but you're not alone. Like I said, this is something that we all have in common. And there's a little girl in Barcelona, or a little boy in, or a grown boy in London, um, who's feeling the same things, or a girl, a woman in China who felt the same. So all around the world, we're all dealing with these same feelings of loneliness and fear and uncertainty, frustration. Um, we're all there. So you're not alone when you feel these things. And the good part is this will end, and we will get back to some type of normal. But this will be something that we all have in common. Generations after us won't, hopefully, they won't know this experience, but this is something that we all share in common. We will all be able to look back and say, what were you doing at that time? Remember how we were in isolation? What were you up to? So just keep that in mind when you're feeling alone or afraid. You're not alone. We're all in this together, and we will all get through this together. And we feel it badly enough, reach out to somebody, because I guarantee you'll find someone else who's experiencing the same types of emotions that you're feeling. So that's all for today. Is that all for you? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to continue on and find out more about Toya's world. She hasn't even gotten to school yet. We're still in the summertime, but when she gets to school, things are really going to take off.